the music you've got coming in now, you're using. Are you still using that Machine Gunner song?
Yes.
So that's one of my oldest buddies in town. Jason Seaver wrote that and sang it. He's fantastic. He's like one of the best. He's one of the first guys I knew when I moved to town, Nashville. I knew him before I moved to town. He moved first, and then got a place, and then I'd come to town to write, and I'd sleep on his couch, and yeah.
Oh wow!
So he's like one of my oldest friends. He's probably my favorite male country singer in town, and he's had some big old hits, but just a sweetheart of a guy and a killer singer and writer. And so when I saw that you switched to that Machine Gun, I was like, oh, that's Jason.
Yeah, no, it was a great. I always try to switch something up every year, and this year I was like, oh, let's do the music. And Gina showed me that song, or my colleague Gina, you know her.
Oh yeah,
she but she showed me that song, and I showed that to a previous guest, Steven Kubrick, who's a WWE wrestler, or he was a WWE wrestler, and he was like, oh man, because he used to be a machine gunner.
Oh, really?
He was like, oh, yeah. He was like, I want that for my intro music.
Nice.
Of course, but WWE is very tight on their own music and their own brand and their own identity. So they have their own writers and stuff. But he didn't have the creative license to actually change it at the time. But no, he loved it. He absolutely loved it.
Huh? Yeah, Jason's a talented dude for sure. He's one of the best out there. So he's one of the good ones, that's for sure.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about you real quick. First question we always ask here on Borne the Battle is, Jonathan, where and when did you know the military was going to be the next step in your life?
That's a good question. I didn't realize that until, no one in my family had ever been in. And I grew up in a little farm town in Northern California. And I actually took the ASVAB test to get out of class. A buddy of mine and I were joking around. He's like, well, dude, we should go take this test. You can get out of class and go to the theater for an hour, and you could skip. I don't remember what class it was, math or something. I said, well, that sounds like a great idea. So I skipped out and signed up. We both went and took the ASVAB, and it's a test, and whatever, it tests your ability and whatnot. And I think in the beginning I assumed that I thought like, oh, well, I did well in this test, and so that's why everyone's calling me. But in retrospect, I realized it's like, oh, well, I signed up to take the test, so then that week the Army, the Navy,
everybody
Air
has your
Force,
number.
Marine, yeah, exactly. Everybody's got your number. It doesn't matter what score you get on the test, really.
But you had to have done pretty good on the test, though, because you ended up managing nuclear reactors.
I mean, yeah, I did. I think I scored the top, I don't know, 1% in the nation or something, but I don't think that's why they called me. I mean, it was just they don't give that job to like a guy that like barely passed it, No, I think there's a threshold, I'm sure, but I don't remember. I remember there being like mechanical things, and I'm pretty handy, I guess. So I remember there was like, if this gear turns this way and that one turns this way, like which direction, I'm pretty logical, I guess, but, but yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where that following week, I remember the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines, everybody, all the recruiters in the small town called. And I remember they were all like, well, can we set up an appointment to come by the house? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And so the Army guy came, and I was like, no, that doesn't seem like what I want to do. And I hadn't really, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. My parents didn't make a lot of money. And so we definitely, I had good grades and everything. I don't know why I didn't. I mean, we didn't have money for college. I knew that. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I could do the military and help pay for college. And so then the Air Force guy came, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. And then the Marine guy came, and I was like, I'm not sure I'm that cool or tough. So, and then the Navy guy came, and I thought, oh, that sounds cool. I like to travel. I'd like to at some point go around the world. And, so I remember thinking about it, and then the Navy recruiter kept calling me. Ken was his name. And he was like, well, you did pretty good on the math and physics. He's like, you should come down to MEPS in Oakland and take this math and physics aptitude test for the nuclear program. And I was like, meh. So I remember I went down there and I took the math and physics test just because I kind of like a challenge. And I guess passed it or did well. I don't remember how I did, but I must have passed it. And I remember he was so good. Like, he was so slick. He was just kind of like, well, you passed this, you might as well take the physical, see if you pass the physical, thinking like, and in retrospect, it's like,
let me just get you the next step. Totally.
It's just like, it was pretty slick. And so it was, and I don't even remember what the physical was. I think it was like, oh, hey, heartbeat and something else. And so I came home and I was 17 at the time. So my parents had to co-sign for me because I was not legally allowed to sign up. And I remember when the recruiter came back to the house and I was talking to my dad about it. My dad was like, sounds great. Yep, sounds great. And my mom was just kind of like, I don't know, son. I'm not sure. My dad was just like, yep, that's great. Let's do it. So I signed up. When I graduated, I was 17, graduated high school. And then I remember I went and worked at a summer camp at a horse ranch with kids. And then I went into basic on Christmas Eve. I remember. I don't know why that was.
Wow.
And so
you spent Christmas in boot camp?
My first morning in boot camp was Christmas morning, and I remember that. I distinctly remember the 3 a.m. trash can lid just bang bang, and then a whole list of curse words and to get up, and I was kind of like, whoa, all right, this is different. And,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas was sprinkled in there somewhere, but there was a lot of other colorful language that happened before that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was Christmas Day. I remember I went in on Christmas Eve, and then I can't remember if they shaved our heads first, or I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was Christmas Day, and I remember thinking like, oh man, what have I signed up for? I'd been practicing my push-ups before I went in, but that didn't help because there was a lot of them.
So obviously you graduated boot camp, got through it.
I managed.
Was there ever any apprehension when it was like handling nuclear stuff? Like,
I mean, I was
as far as like, am I going to be bald or have some weird growths or?
They're very, I mean, I was in the nuclear propulsion, the NNPS, Naval Nuclear Power, like NNPS school. And so you basically Homer Simpson. I mean, you, depending on what part of the reactor department you're in, there's primary, secondary sides. And, but they're very, what's the word? There's obviously a lot of regulations surrounding it, and you constantly wear a little TLD thermoluminescent detector, on your belt. And then you get checked every week. I think it was, you turn it in and they check how much radiation you've gotten. And if you rarely would exceed what you would get more in a cross country flight being closer to the sun, than you would in a week. There's so much shielding and around, because each, like a carrier has 2 reactors on it, at least the one I was on the Abraham Lincoln. So not a huge concern. I have one kid. And
he's not weird or anything.
he has red hair, and I don't know where that came from. So perhaps I should file something with the VA and say, hey, look, this happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty cute. He's redhead and freckles, and so maybe that was a result of my direct line of work in the reactor department. But no, I mean, they definitely take a lot of precautions, and they limit your exposure. And so far, I haven't seen anything. I did have a tumor cut out of my stomach a couple of years ago, but I don't think that had anything to do with it. But
no,
I don't think so. It would.
All right.
I think no. I'm not. I haven't.
Interesting. Yeah. Your bio said that's where you started writing songs. Is it like when you were in that Homer Simpson little seat? You were just like, you know what? Like where did where did the thought of like, hey, songwriting, like where did that start?
Man, I actually didn't. I started. There's 5 kids in my family. My older brother, Nathan, is he's a great. All my brothers and sisters are musicians, but Nate he started writing songs when he was in high school, and he's very, very well read and very literate and poetic and wrote great songs. And he kind of introduced me to songwriters, like singer-songwriters. And for me, that was, he turned me on to James Taylor and Sean Colvin, Joni Mitchell. In the 90s, there was a lot of singer-songwriters kind of coming up. There was kind of a boom on that. And I mean, he introduced me to all those cats and Jackson Browne.
So this was all like right when you were in the Navy, he was introducing this stuff to you.
Yeah. And in high school he was playing it, but then he worked in Woodland. There was, I doubt it's still there because I don't think people buy CDs anymore, but there was a place called Valley Records Distribution or Valley Distribution. And it was called a One Stop, and it was a huge warehouse on the edge of town. And it was basically where all the record labels would send their CDs, and they'd warehouse. And then when Tower Records would place an order for 50 records, they would ship them out. So it was the biggest one stop on the West Coast.
Gotcha.
And kind of the only thing going on the north end of town. And so my brother worked there, and so he would get access to tons of records. And so he would always be bringing stuff home. And so, yeah, he introduced me to a bunch of singer-songwriters and kind of helped me fall in love with that style. And then I started playing guitar about that. Actually, I started playing guitar when I graduated high school. So I played keyboard, but the job I wanted at the summer camp after high school, they didn't want to hire me because I was 17. And they said, well, can you play music? And I said, well, yeah, I play piano. And they said, well, that doesn't really work around the campfire. I was like,
you can't bring a baby grand around the campfire.
I said, well, that's a good point. To lead music at a camp, you need to know like 3 chords, maybe 4, and you pretty much got the songbook covered. And so I faked and fumbled my way through that summer, and then after the summer was over, I went to boot camp. Didn't have a guitar, obviously, and then. So yeah, I guess for graduation, my parents agreed to pay for one half of a guitar. I mean, I got a whole guitar, but it was they paid for half of one, and so yeah. By the time I guess I finished boot camp, and then I came home, I remember I took my guitar back with me to the barracks, and because I ended up staying in Orlando at the base there. I went to basic, and then I went to machinist school, and then after that. I ended up staying on actually for 6 months at machinist school and being a lab assistant. And then from there went to the power new NMPS. The power school was on the same campus. And then after that, the training facility was at INL out in Idaho Falls. They have an actual reactor out in the middle of the desert, and you get certified to do your Homer Simpson out there. And so that was another 6 months, but the first year, almost a year and a half, probably was a year and a half, was in Orlando at school. But yeah, I played then, but then I got assigned to the Abraham Lincoln. And so there was obviously no piano on the boat either. So I saved up money and bought a nicer guitar at that point. Cause then I had a JOB for the last 2 years, and went down to Guitar Center and bought myself a legit guitar. And, Westpac is 6 months. And so there's not a lot to do when you're not on duty. And so when you're driving circles in the Persian Gulf, play guitar. So we were stationed, the boat was out of Alameda, California. And then when I remember I'd never really played out or anything. And then my buddies, we'd pull back into port. My buddies would go over to San Francisco, across the bridge, and, go to the bars. And I remember they'd come back drunk and be like, hey, Kingham, you should go play at this bar. Anybody can get up and sing. And I was like, really? I don't really do that. And they're like, no. And it was an open mic. And so anybody you just sign up. And
yeah.
So I would go and went once, and I didn't have any original songs really that I could play. So I played some of my brother's songs. I played some James Taylor and whatever. And I was terrible. I mean, never was the best. And so
open mic night. It's open mic night.
Totally.
You know? It's like your first time.
Yeah.
That's
the
cool.
bar's not super high. And so I can jump a low bar. And so they'd be slightly inebriated. So they'd lie and tell me it was good. So I did it. I started doing it. And then we go back out to sea. And so I started writing. You know, I kind of started writing when I was out at sea, just because I was missing a lot of stuff back home and just kind of helped pass the time. And that's where I started writing, and then kept on writing. And then when I was still in the Navy, and I started doing shows. The boat moved to Bremerton to go into dry dock. And while it was in dry dock, we were pretty close to Seattle. So I started going over to Seattle, and man, there was some people that could sing and play. And so
what year was this?
That would have been like 94, 95, probably 95.
Oh my gosh. So you're in Seattle, and I'm from Washington State myself. I'm from 2 hours west of Seattle.
Where at?
Like Aberdeen, Hoquiam.
Oh, yeah.
The birthplace of Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Muddy Banks of the Wishkah. I grew up in the Olympic National Rainforest area.
Oh, so beautiful out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, you're talking about Seattle at a time when, I mean, music was just jamming in Seattle. I miss that Seattle. I completely miss that Seattle.
Yeah.
Late 80s, you had some great, rock acts that came out of there.
Mudhoney and all those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 90s, of course, you had the grunge era.
Brad.
And you were right in the middle of all that.
Yeah. I was never that cool. I mean, I was pretty dorky.
But you were in it.
I mean, on the periphery, I guess, as a dorky Navy guy could be. I mean, and it's also, there's a limited scope of what you can get into when you're, you got to be back on base, and you got to show up.
But what was it like to be in that town at that era during, and just in that vibe at that time?
I mean, I agree. Seattle was a different, I ended up staying after I got out. It was a different place. I mean, I never planned on it, but like I got out of the Navy in end of 97. I just ended up staying because there was so much music happening, and I loved being there. And I didn't realize the toll it was taking psychologically on me to like I hate the rain. And so, growing up in Northern California, but I ended up living there for, I think 16, 17 years. And, but there was just so much music. I mean, there's all of those bands you mentioned, plus all the whole world of singer-songwriters. And then I started listening to a ton of jazz, because KPLU, the jazz station up there, used to be, I guess. There was just so much music. There's still a ton of amazing musicians. And
yeah, it seems like every decade Seattle has a musician that just pops.
Yeah,
that just comes out.
Yep.
I mean, I think most recent for me is like Macklemore. He's like the most recent like musician to and it's always different genres too.
Yep,
it's always different. Yeah. I just love the amalgamation that Seattle has when it comes to music. Was music the reason that you left the Navy? Was it like, hey, I want to pursue this?
Not intentionally. No, I mean, I didn't plan. It's interesting. I didn't really plan on. Not as a kid, like, hey, I want to grow up and go into the military. And I also didn't think like, oh, I want to grow up and be a musician. It was like, I'll take the ASVAB, and you passed the physical and the physics. Okay, well, you might as well go in, and it's probably a good choice. And then music, I kind of same thing. While I was in Seattle, I started, I started doing the open mic, and there was a really cool little cafe over in West Seattle called Madison's Cafe, and the owner, Bill, he was like, oh man, you'd sing 2 songs on a Sunday night or whatever open mic night was. And then he said, well, you should come back on a Wednesday and do your own show. He's like, I can't pay you, but you can get tips. And so I started doing that because, the boat wasn't going out. And so then I pretty much by the time I got out, I had gone from like Wednesday night for tips to Thursday night for $5 to play Friday nights for $10 cover. And like, it kind of just, I don't know, organically had built. And so when I got out, I had actually, before I got out, I started saving some money and I started recording some songs. And so I had put out like a little,
like a little EP.
I put out an EP. I was just laughing because I was thinking about it because it was on a cassette and I'd never done a record before. And in standard Johnathan dorkdom, when I went to get them duplicated, the duplication company, Disc Makers, I think it was, or Martin Audio, they said, well, the lady who was duplicating them, she was super sweet. She was like, well, you should have like, I didn't have any graphic design or anything. And she was like, well, you should have a picture of yourself on the front. And I never had my picture. I hate having my picture taken. And she was like, well, you need to get a photo so we can, put a photo on the front so people will know who you are. And I was like, oh man. So I remember I went down to the University Ave down there and there was this old lady who did like band photos. And I can't remember I wish I remember her name, but I remember it was on the Ave, University Ave. And it was like, you walk up this carpeted narrow staircase and I go up there and she's got like a little photography studio. And, had like the backdrops that you crank down around, like different. And so she cranks down like the gray. I don't even remember what it was. And then
Seattle grunge.
I feel like there was like a log or like a fake log on the ground. It was the most weird. And so I'm just like standing there with my guitar and it's the dorkiest, most amazingly dorky thing. Like, and so then I made these cassettes and I didn't, who knew? It was 6 songs or something. And they were pretty meaty. It's probably the first 6 songs I ever wrote. And I remember there was a singer-songwriter I was really digging on, this guy named David Wilcox out of North Carolina. And he was coming to town at the backstage down in Ballard. And I had bought tickets to go see him. And I don't know why, but I'm just like, well, I'm going to call the club promoter and see who's opening the show. And so I called and he's like, well, I don't think anybody is. I don't think he's bringing support. So he's like, let me find out. So he called me back like a week later and was like, well, he's not bringing support. So if you want to do 30 minutes, I'll pay you $50 and give you 2 tickets. And I was like, well, I already bought tickets. So, so he was just like, he's let me open the show. And I was so nervous. This guy was like one of my heroes. And
wow,
it was a sold out show, 500 people. It was like one of my first big shows. And I totally like forgot to plug my guitar in my first song. And I'm thinking like, wow, it sounds terrible. Like what is going to look, and halfway through the first song, my mic cables and my guitar cables hanging off the mic stand. I'm thinking like, oh, I'm a joker. And
oh no.
So I stopped, plug the guitar back in and make a joke about it. And I mentioned offhand, I was like, I got some cassettes in the back or my trunk, if anybody was interested, they're $5. And I had like 100 of them and I sold them out. Like I sold all 100. And I remember thinking like, wow, that was pretty cool. Like, all right. And so the club owner was like, well, people really dug that. You want to open for this woman, Jonathan Brooks. She's coming through town in a couple of weeks. I was like, yeah, I love her too. And so, but it was just thinking, cause it was that cassette and like that there was some lady that sent me a message and said, hey, I purchased your cassette at the show. I really enjoyed the show. But I think there's something wrong with your cassette because you kind of sound like Satan underwater. And I was like, because it was a cassette. Well, cassettes would get warbled sometimes. So it was like,
That's funny. Well, you've played with a very diverse set of performers. You mentioned Sean Colvin.
I love Sean. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, Vanessa Carlton. Some other ones. Was this all in Seattle, or is like, hey, as you started going on the road, you started playing with these folks? What was it like?
Some in Seattle, a lot of it's, if there's a promoter in the Northwest, then he'll, say, oh, people enjoyed that, and I'll put you on this opening slot, open for this person, open for that person. And, Seattle and Idaho and around the Northwest. And then, as long as you don't screw it up too bad, they're pretty amendable to having you back usually. And if it's a good fit, a good promoter will try to find somebody that's not completely the same as the headliner. But I love opening. I feel like it's like my favorite thing because it's 30, 40 minutes. You play your only 6 good songs out of, 100. And then it's great. You get exposed to a whole new group of a whole new audience that you wouldn't normally have. And it's crazy. I look back on some of those openers, and like I got to open for Sean Colvin at the Benaroya Symphony Hall, and it's beautiful symphony hall, and there was probably 2,500, 3,000 people there. And from that one show, like I can trace back a number of different like tours that people asked me to be on, all sorts of crazy stuff from that one show. Like I had a guy email me like 7 years after that show. I'm like, hey, I saw you open for Sean 7 years ago. And like just crazy stuff so I love doing the opening act, and there's a lot less pressure because it's like, they kind of expect you to suck, and because it's like,
I'm sure you didn't, or else you wouldn't be kept getting called back for different shows,
but know how it is when you go to a show, you're like, show's at 8, the opener will be on till 8:45, so I'll get to the show about 9. Like, you know how it is.
But you're also the hype man. You're also the hype man being the opener. Yeah.
Totally. WWE, you carry the round card around, and
there you go. Or you're the opening match, and it's usually like a high flyer, it's usually like a cruiserweight title fight or something.
See are you a fan of the WWE? Is that what
I was at one point, but I still follow the dirt sheets. I don't know why. Maybe because I feel like wrestlers in that, with like when we grew up, we're just like the big hair metal bands, like the backstage, like, just tearing it up, crazy lifestyle. And so I've always been enamored with it. Always been enamored with that whole lifestyle. I don't know what it is. I don't watch it anymore, but I'm still enamored with like the wrestling industry and like how that's a thing and how it works and stuff.
I tried to explain it to my son. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. Like I didn't really follow. I have one friend who's crazy about it, but my son saw something. I can't remember what it was. It was a couple of weeks ago. My son's 8, and he was like, his eyes were just kind of like huge. He's like, what are they doing, Dad? And I was like, buddy, that's fake. Like they're actually falling on the ground, but like it's choreographed and it's brilliant. It's a show. And he was kind of like, whoa, I want to do that, because he loves to roughhouse and wrestle.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. But wrestle me, but not anyone else.
Gotcha. You got a favorite story from opening for someone? Like, is there someone that you opened for that you never thought in a million years that I would be opening for this person?
Man, I mean, there's a lot of them, but there's I think one of my favorite ones, and there was a promoter who had me do a few, and then he called, and he used to book the summer concert series at the zoo in Seattle. They still, before COVID, they'd have a big outdoor stage. It's awesome. Take a picnic, take the kids, listen to the elephants in the background. And, but anyways, he called and said, hey, Michael McDonald's coming. Do you want to open? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And he was so cool, and just like, awesome show. Like, and that's, to me, that's probably one of the coolest things is like, you play, and then you get in the show for free. Sometimes you could snack on some of the catering and, get your, but, I think probably the coolest thing that came out of that show was I had a guy come up to me at the merch booth, and, he he bought like 15 copies of my record or something, and he was like, man, that was great. He was super hyper, and like he was my age, and really cool guy. And he was like, man, that's great. He's like, I play keys, and I'd love to play sometime. And I was like, oh, okay. It's just kind of everything's a little crazy after a show. And
sure.
Anyways, fast forward a couple of months, and same guy comes back to a solo show later, and he starts talking to me. He's like, hey man, we should jam sometime. He's like, I play keys and this and that. And I was like, okay, cool. And we became friends, but we never really played together. And then probably another 4 or 5 months later, it was New Year's Eve, and he invited me over to his house for New Year's Eve. And so I went over, and he had old Fender Rhodes set up in his living room. And he sat down, and he was playing with this blues artist at the time. And he started playing. I was like, oh my goodness, this guy is on fire. Like this dude can play.
Just totally blew your socks off.
Oh yeah. And so I was like, man, we should definitely play some, we've been talking about it. We should do some shows. So he started playing with me, and he's been playing with me for 20 years now. And
that's awesome.
And he's like, one of my best friends. And it's just, so out of that Michael McDonald, we always joke like in the old millennium we met. And, but yeah, his name's Ryan Shea Smith, and he's incredible keyboard player, singer, songwriter. He loves Michael McDonald, hence he was at the show. And so we have many Michael McDonald jokes at this point, but, so yeah, that was probably one of the highlights, and
you got a lifelong friend out of it. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Sure. So,
now I've seen a couple of reviews that were sent to me. One of my favorites, and I just had to share it, was my favorite was more chops than a meat department at Safeway. Is it the Dallas Chronicle or the Dalles?
The Dalles down in Oregon.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. That was pretty good. And then another one, when you got reviewed by VH1 and MTV, it says Kingham yields music that is devisely simple, organic, and genuine in a way that a mainstream is not. Now, touring, playing music for, I would say, a niche crowd, what's that life like? Is it lucrative? Are there ups and downs? I've always seen niche crowds, niche music. It may not be mainstream, may not blow up, but the fan base is always so dedicated to whatever that artist is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a strange time. I mean, growing up through the, 80s and 90s, and the music business was completely different back then. I mean, if you didn't have the backing of a major label, like it just wasn't going to happen. And I kind of ended up in that weird spot when that was starting to crack. And I actually had like a development record deal with Universal South, was like a label down here and in Nashville. And so I started flying down, and they paid for some recordings and stuff. And then that disintegrated. But I was already making records on my own. And so it's kind of a weird, now it's, if you have a label, that's great. They'll put a bunch of money behind you, but it's not at all a requirement these days. And
we've talked about Macklemore. Macklemore's the one that kind of showed that you can kind of just do it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to take it absolutely enormous, you have to have a team. But yeah, I mean, Macklemore, he used to freestyle on the corner in downtown Seattle. Like he did it completely street. Excuse me. So
he just found a really good team to work with him to get, Ryan Lewis doing it, doing his stuff, and he's
super talented. I mean, so it's been an interesting path. It's definitely, what's the word I'm looking for? It is somebody joked recently. They said, they're like, man, his business is his feast or famine. And my friend goes, no, it's more like snack or famine. He's like, it's not really. He's like, interesting. You rarely get the feast, but, and I think that's kind of what the internet has done in terms of like, I think it's made the middle class a little bigger in the music world. I don't think there's as many people that have huge, massive hits. It's made it possible to make a lower level living without having nobody knows any of my songs. But you're able to make a living. And I mean, there's a guy who put out a book, and it was like, I can't remember his name. It's basically the idea of like having 1,000 true fans. He's like, if you can find 1,000 true fans that each are willing to spend $100 a year on you, like whether that's 2 tickets to your show and a t-shirt, he's like, that's $100,000 a year. That's, before touring expenses, but
sure,
which is about 60% of your gross income. But he said, you find 1,000 true fans and cultivate that relationship, then, that's a living. You're solidly lower middle class, but, so there's room to do it, and there's ways, and the tricky part is there's so much of it now. I mean, there are so many, because the barrier has gotten so much lower. You don't have to save up $50,000 to make a record anymore. Excuse me. You just, you buy Logic and put it on your MacBook Pro and get yourself a Rode Podcaster, and you can you can make a good sounding record on your laptop at home with GarageBand. So
yeah. And that's the same with podcasting. That's the same with the film industry, writing. Like the barrier has dropped so low as far as the barrier to entry. But I think you're right in the fact that the peaks aren't there like they used to, like the big peaks.
No. And I mean, you went to Cronkite School of Broadcasting, right? I mean, that's
yes, sir. And online, but I did it.
Hey, excuse me. That counts. So was that before you were in or after you were?
That was that was after I was in taking night school while I was still a senior post-production editor at NASCAR. So I'd go to work, and then I'd go school after work. No.
Yeah. I mean, it's the barriers are much lower, but the trick becomes who's the gatekeeper to quality. And I think that's why the Spotify playlists, curators, and all those people have come into these positions of power, because they're hypothetically make it easier for you and I to find quality stuff. So
gotcha. So it's the curators now. Interesting.
I think so. I mean, that's what will make or break you if you can get on the newest Spotify playlist or the new Amazon Music play, whatever the playlists are. The people that are curating those playlists are the new gatekeepers to
the fans.
Yeah, to the fans,
to new fans, to discovery.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. So, our mutual friend, and my colleague Gina, she told me that you're also now playing keyboard and guitar for Toad the Wet Sprocket, and my immediate reaction was who? She said, "Oh, and I had to look it up, and it seems like I was about a half a generation behind, because if I mention that band to anybody that's like 10 or 15 years older than me, instant recognition. But for me, it was blank. I went blank. But so again, I looked them up, and yep, it's that Oasis Gin Blossoms feel that I totally missed about the time that folks have an older brother or sister. How did you? But it's really cool. How did you link up with them? How did that gig come about? Where you're now part of the band?
Well, I met Glenn Phillips, the lead singer, at a Songwriters weekend up in Durango, Colorado, about 17 years ago. I don't remember. It's been a while, but I was a fan. I mean, I was a fan of the band, and it was a Songwriters weekend, and you get together and write songs and perform and whatever. And I met him, and excuse me, I got a frog.
No worries.
We just kind of hit it off instantly, fast friends, and we were going to go. We wrote something, and then we kind of blew off the whole rest of the weekend. Just went hiking with a friend of ours, Kim Ritchie, and we just kind of became friends in the mountains. And then he called me a couple weeks later. He was like, "Hey man," he's like, "I'm putting out a solo record," because the band Toad had broken up, and he's finished a solo record. And he said, "Hey, I'm putting out a solo record," and he said, "I need a utility guy. You can play keys and guitar and whatever. And he's like, do you want to go out on the road? And I was like, well, sure. So I helped him.
Cool. That's a cool opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the irony, we were talking about this last time I talked with him, and like he had never actually even seen me play. And like we met in the bar, and like I just got done playing, and some people came by and were like, hey man, that was really great. I enjoyed that. I'm like, oh, thanks. And so Glenn was like, well, you must be pretty good. The people seem to enjoy it. I was like, wow, I don't know. So he had actually never seen me play, and he asked me to come out on tour. And so
that's a leap of faith.
It's very trusting. And so I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to. I mean, I'm a fan of, he's one of the best songwriters out there and singers. And I mean, he's fantastic. You should dig into his solo stuff too, in addition to the Toad stuff. But gotcha. Anyways, I helped him put together a band, and we did a full US tour. I don't know, 40 dates or something. And then the label dropped him. And so he started doing independent records. And so I started touring with him just acoustically, the two of us, quite a bit, for, I don't know, 9 years. And then, he asked the band, Toad got back together, and, they started working on a new record, and he called me and said, hey man, Toad's getting back together. We're putting out a new record. I think it's probably 11 years ago or something. He said, I'd love for you to come out and play keys and steel on the road with us. And so, yeah, sure. And it's supposed to be like 20 dates. He's like, we're going to try it out, see how it goes. And he's like, everybody's getting along, got new songs, and seems good. And so, I said, sure. So it was supposed to be 20 dates. And I think that was 2010 maybe. And
so it's turned into an 11-year relationship.
Well, yeah, I mean, we ended up doing, I think, 80 shows that first year. And I was like, whoa, I got a bunch of solo dates and trying to work that around. And I teach songwriting residencies and stuff. And I do a lot of, like, with kids, high school and junior high kids. And so I ended up doing 80 shows. And then the next year, I think we did 75. And now since then, I think they've done two full records and an EP. And there's a new one coming out at some point. It's done. So it just kind of organically ended up, I've been playing with them for 10 or 11 years, I think now. Although we only did 3 shows last year in 2020.
Yeah, but it still counts as a year. But so how many shows total in those 11 years though, you figure?
With them? Oh man. Probably average 70 shows a year. So probably 600, 700 shows, I would guess. So
what a hey, do you want to turn into 700 shows? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And I mean, with Glenn, the last show in person I played was with Glenn acoustic. We went to Switzerland in February of last year, and did a couple festivals over there. And I remember while we were there, the Corona was just starting to break in Italy and Spain and across the border. And Glenn was like, this could be bad. And I was like, it's fine. It's going to be okay. I don't, He's definitely the canary in the coal mine. Like he worries for the rest of the village, and that's his superpower. And I'm usually like the optimist. I'm like, no, it's fine. And sure enough, he was right. I mean, he called it. So it's, so we do normally I do probably 20, 30, depending, sometimes 40 shows a year with him. And then Toad usually does like a block of dates, we're like, this summer last summer we were supposed to do a 2.5 month run with the Gin Blossoms and the Bare Naked Ladies.
There you go. I called it.
Dude, yeah, you were there. You were there in the zone. You had them all. You were hitting them. So we've been doing a lot of those package tours. But yeah, so that was supposed to happen last summer, and then it got postponed to this summer. Same date, same venues, just different year. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure the world's going to be ready for 10,000 people getting together, singing at the top of their lungs.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second here. I gotta pull up a name from a previous episode. So when all this started, I interviewed Josh Strickland. He's has a band called the Bayou Bandits out of Arizona, and he's also a traveling nurse and was a traveling nurse during COVID. He talked about how COVID was really starting to really stop a lot of the traveling as far as the band was going. But they did a lot of virtual shows. How, from your perspective, from what you've seen in Nashville and through your connections, what have you seen? What did COVID do to the entire music industry when it happened?
It's been decimated, like absolute. I mean, for Nashville, I was telling my wife yesterday, I went and dropped off a piece of studio equipment that I was getting repaired at the repair shop, and it's over in Berry Hill area and surrounded by studios, and they're all, I mean, on a Thursday, normally it would just be packed and every parking lot's vacant. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't think, I mean, being Nashville, obviously the music business is, I mean, healthcare is the biggest economic driver for Nashville, but music is a close second. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, yeah, we couldn't tour. Well, it's not just we couldn't tour and play music. It was our bus driver's out of work, and the guy that runs our front of house audio is out of work, and the company that installs that and the company that rents that. And like the tendrils, we have a couple rental houses, and like one of our tenants worked for Word Music. Well, Word Music, one of their biggest publishing arms is for like worship and church music. Well, she got laid off because they closed that whole thing because they make their royalties off of churches. Well, churches are shuttered, so they're not performing that music. So she got laid. Like the tendrils of the layoff is just like staggering. And so it's, some people have shifted to online. Glenn's been able to do, survive and make a living off of doing online concerts and stuff. And some people have shifted that way. And I think fans have gotten more used to it. And he was doing it before COVID hit. He was already doing one live stream show concert, like a ticketed concert online a week or a month, depending. But I mean, looking at the fallout, like how wide, like this last economic package with the SVOG, what was the small venue operators grant, operational grants. It's like, I mean, the venues here shuttered, like everything. It's, I mean, all those people are laid off. It's just like, it's crazy. And I think it'll be one of the last ones to come back just because of the nature of it. So yeah, it's like the CDC, the two worst things are large groups and people singing, like expelling things into the air together. And like,
I don't mean to laugh. It's just, it's what do you do? It's
comical when you look at it that way. It's like, okay, what are the two worst things? The CDC says, okay, well, that's the job. And so, but not only that, I mean, you take it a step farther, like my buddy Jason, who wrote your Machine Gunner song. Yeah. He's been he doesn't tour much. I wish he did. We've done some shows together and he's incredible, but he's been a staff songwriter for a bunch of different publishing companies for the last 20 years. But even the publishing companies, they pay a writer a salary every year to write X amount of songs that then they go and try to get Kenny Chesney or Garth Brooks or Dustin
some
Lynch
artist to sing it.
Yeah. And then they make their money. You make your money off of royalties. And if you get a hit, then you make some money off the radio, etc. You don't make, anyways. There's different piles.
That chain has changed too. How that used to work. I've met people through the nonprofit Operation Song, and you talk about people that were paying colleges, their kids' college funds through songwriting. That it's not what it used to be anymore because of digital publishing. Yeah.
I mean, you use the mechanical royalty rate is, I don't know what it is this year. It was 9.2 cents per song per record last 2 years ago. So, even if you got a song on a Garth Brooks record that wasn't a radio single is the word I'm looking for. You'd make, it sells 1 million copies, make $91,000, you make a living. Like that's, but now it's like the streaming royalty rates is nowhere near. I mean, like I would make I would typically make on like a show day, selling records at a show, more in one show than I would make streaming the entire year. And so the shift in that, and so for a staff songwriter who doesn't go out and tour, you would be dependent upon getting a song on a record, and you can make a living, recoup your salary. With that going away, then you're dependent on getting a hit that's on the radio, because that's a different set of income. And so if you don't get a hit, if you don't get radio play, like your chances of making money, they dwindle down pretty quickly. And so, I mean, they're trying to figure it out, the streaming rates.
Sure. Because eventually you're going to squeeze artists out of being an artist. And that's what you don't want.
The trick has been that it historically, at least, especially in Nashville, it's been songwriters write the songs for the artists. Not all. There are some artists that write their own songs, but traditionally it was the songwriters who wrote the songs, and that's what they're really good at doing. There could be terrible singers, but they write amazing songs. Which is one of the things that drew me to this town, was like, man, these songs are amazing. And you go see a guy who is never going to be on the cover of GQ magazine, but man, that guy will slay you with his song. And it used to be they would write the songs, and then, you know, and whoever would sing them, you know, George Strait would sing it, and everybody made a living. Well, there was that sort of division of labor. And because of the way that the finances have gotten squeezed, now they're making singers writers when they aren't necessarily a great writer. They could be an incredible singer, really beautiful, however that all shakes out. But it's like, well, the label needs to make that money from the publishing end. So they're going to say, okay, you're a writer. I commissioned you as a writer.
They're cutting out one of the things and trying to, it's like when Combat Camera kind of consolidated, and they said, okay, yeah, you can write stories and take a photograph and do a video. And it's like, okay, I'm only good at one of those things, but all right, cool.
Yeah. The assumption, and it kind of goes to the independent artist. You're expected, now you got to wear all those hats. And so it sounds like the same with Combat Camera. I mean, it's changed the game. Yeah.
For a veteran that's looking to get into songwriting or touring as a career, what advice do you have? Is there anything that you can do to help with some of this change that we're talking about? You know, I've seen your bio, and you know, we read it off at the intro that you didn't hear. Is there anything like, you know, I've seen others cultivate an audience online. You've been successful in competitions. What have you found to be successful in helping maintain the career that you obviously love?
Buy rental properties.
Have another source of income. Okay.
No, I mean, I joke, but it's gotten us through this last year when it's really, it's one of those things that's been fascinating. I mean, having something like COVID, where, I mean, I've been doing music pretty much since I got out of the Navy. And it, like, to have that all of a sudden, like, nope, that's not happening this year. It's a good thing to have other options,
other streams of income, diversify that portfolio.
Yeah. Gotcha. My wife always jokes it's the trickle, because it's like, oh, here's a check for $100. Here's a check for 500. Like, it just, and that's both with royalties and other things. But like, I guess my thing would be figure out what you like doing musically, and figure out what your superpower is in that world that sets you aside. What makes it different. Unfortunately, people's attention spans have gotten so short.
Yeah.
But figuring out what it is that you like to do, what you're drawn to, what you're passionate about. But I guess my main advice would be aware that there are so many different ways. Like, I've got a buddy that I write with, he lives in Florida actually, and he's been doing music library stuff where he used to tour and he used to do that kind of stuff, but he produces tracks and at home or in the studio. He's got a little studio, but he basically does TV and film licensing, and he puts songs into a music library, and he makes a good living.
Oh, so for like APM or for like First Com or stuff like that, or his own personal library.
He writes for a library out of the UK actually, and they're called Audio Network, but they do a lot of TV and TV film, mostly Europe and Japan and Australia. And I've done 2 projects with him now, and it's really interesting to see where the royalties, and it's such a different economy of scale where it's like, you'll get royalty statements like, well, this got used in something, the Coronation Crown, something, I don't know, some British soap opera or something, and you'll see you got like 7 cents here, 9 cents there. But he's been doing it for 10 years now. He probably makes 80 or 90 grand a year just in passive income. So there are so many different, in the words of George Bush, ways to skin a cat. There are so many different, if it is the music business that you want to be in, there's everything from the writing to the publishing, the studio work, all that stuff. But even in the songwriting world, there's writing for yourself, there's writing for your own records. And then the whole music library, TV and film aspect is only growing, I feel like, because there's so many more avenues. How many channels are on television? They all have background music.
Yeah. So, no, we used APM, and NASCAR, and we have a music library for our own digital media here at the VA. So, I see a lot of the same writers. Yeah. I noticed, and I will gravitate to a certain writer because I know that their library is quality. Absolutely. So absolutely, I totally get with what you're talking about.
And it makes your job easier because I trust this writer. They put out good stuff, and it's funny. That's when my buddy Pete, who does a lot of the music library stuff, and he said, yeah, it's just like producers for different TV shows will say, oh yeah, they'll look for your name when you got a new project with a new, it's all separated by genre, etc. But
one of the very first interviews I did for this podcast was, he's a CEO for a music library. He's cool. And he's an Air Force veteran.
Nice.
So that was like, it was a year and a half ago. Okay. At this very moment, the name escapes my mind, but I'll probably link it in the blog for this episode on blogs.va.gov. So, nice. So you also help, you talked about it earlier, you also help develop future songwriters through your workshops for middle school and high school students. How much talent are you seeing in the younger generations? Are we ever going to get out of the mumble rap and the rock country genres? What are you seeing out there?
Mumble rap, rock country. That's the new genre. Combine those two. Oh man, I'm going to take my horse to the Old Town Road. You know what? I'll be honest. Like the level of talent is off the charts. Like some of the kids, I remember Ryan and I were out in Montana probably 3 years ago. And we did a 2-week run out there and did a bunch of shows and then a bunch of songwriting residencies and schools. And I remember this kid came up after our workshop and he said, hey man, would it be cool if I played you some stuff? I said, absolutely, I'd love to hear it. And he played me something, and he was so good. And this was a town, literally it was a K through 12 combined school, like probably had 100 kids total. Wow. I'm talking super rural, remote Montana. And I looked at this guy, I was like, where did you come from? Like, where did you learn this? And he's like, oh, YouTube. He's like, oh. I was like that, the level of access that kids have to, when you and I grew up, I don't know, do you play anything?
I fumbled through drums, I think on 5th grade, and I lived 30 miles out in town, could never get to town. So I was never able to develop that
Yeah.
Any kind of musical skill. I was in choir in high school, but that was pretty much the extent of my music career. But yeah, I just didn't have access.
That's the point.
Access.
Every single kid, well, I mean, especially with rural broadband getting expanded, like these kids, anything you want to learn, if you have the time and the gumption, I mean, these kids they have access to everything. And so, I mean, I remember we did a show at Ryan and I played a show at a university in Central California. And we were supposed to, the college booked us to play some evening concert thing. And the local students, there was like a jazz program and they were kind of bent out of shape that they were opening for us. And I said, dude, we'll open for you. I got no ego at all in this. Like, you guys can play. We'll play first. I don't care. So we played, and that kind of assuaged their upsetness. And we played, and then they got up, and these kids were maybe, I guess, a freshman, so maybe 18, 19. These kids were unbelievably good. Like,
really?
And they have access to instruction that is, I mean, I subscribe to an online thing called Artist Works online, and you can get like the best players in the world, and it's like $200 a year, and you get unlimited videos and video response. Like, you can play and say, hey, what do you think about this? I'm doing a mandolin one right now with this guy, Mike Marshall, who's, probably one of the top 10 mandolin players in the world. And it's like, wow, anybody can sign up for this. It's $200 a year. You get all these videos. You can slow them down, but the pitch stays the same. And
whoa.
And then at any point you have a question, you can make a video of yourself playing and say, hey, Mike, what do you think about this? And he'll say, oh, well, move your hand. Like, he'll send a video response within a week. Like,
wow,
it's unbelievable. So I think the future is bright. I mean, there's a lot of great music. It's just finding the quality stuff, which isn't always the stuff that makes it to radio. But yeah, the future's bright with the kids. There's so much talent out there. I mean, you watch those singing shows and it's like crazy.
I'm glad you're seeing it. Because
you don't sound optimistic.
I'm at that age where I now have my music palette, on Spotify, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm self-realizing that I'm like, okay, I'm at that age where I'm not liking any of the newer stuff. I am getting to that age where I'm getting older, but no, it's good that you're seeing that.
There's a great article. You can probably find it. It was just talking about why, well, you're not alone. Like, the majority of people stop listening to new music after, I can't remember what the age cut out, like after 32 or something. Like, they say, like, you don't start listening to new stuff and how you should. And so I've been trying to get exposed
to recognize that and still expand. Expand. Yeah.
Because there is a lot of stuff where I hear now where I long for. I wish that I was a songwriter in the 70s and 80s. Like, I love power ballads and stuff like that, and like all those old melodies. Like, I feel like a lot of melody is lacking these days. Is a like, there's not in a lot of the pop music, but there are still some people writing cool stuff. So
I'm getting into acoustic stuff, kind of like what some of the stuff that you do, some of the stuff that Sean, I walked the valley of the shadow of death. I forget his name. A lot of acoustic stuff like that. And then I've been getting into, honestly, lately, within the past 3 or 4 years, video game music. There's so much richness in the scores of video game music now, and in like League of Legends, every time they come out with a song for their tournament or whatever, they come out with some incredible stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, trying to expand that palette, trying to go, okay, I'm realizing that, okay, what else is there that's coming out this year or next year that I actually do like, and sharing that.
That's a great point, though. That's another whole genre of, that's big business, is video games, but the music for video games is huge. And it's all, when Glenn and I were in Seattle, we went to, Bungie, the company we went
Halo.
So Glenn's friends with one of the developers there. And so we got a tour, and they took us to their whole, like, they have a whole composing soundstage, everything. And it's huge, but like a big part of it is it's all, I didn't realize it's like, well, if you go through this part, it triggers this song. And if you go through this part, there's all these different music cues that are triggered depending on where you go in that world.
In the game or in the story I remember there was one that really resonated. It just picked my brain. I was like, wow, I can't believe they chose this for this scene. And it was Red Dead Redemption, when you're finally coming home, and it was an acoustic song. Wow. Like you're going, and it was like an old timey Western feel as you're coming home to see your family after completing all these missions.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I remember going, wow, that was a really unique and good choice. Yeah. You know, and it was just like, and you're riding home on your horse, and I don't know, it was really, it really piqued me, you know, cause you hear all the big scores and all that stuff, but that right there, it was simple and it was impactful.
Yeah.
And it was right on the money.
And they didn't use Old Town Road. I mean, it could have taken
exactly. Exactly. Now, you also donate time in helping fellow veterans write songs about their experiences through Operation Song. How? You know, I've seen it, and I've interviewed veterans that have gone through the program on that side.
Oh, cool.
How have those experiences been for you?
You know, it's amazing. The guy who started it, Bob Regan, he's just, he's one of those people that, like he's one of those people when you meet him, he's an incredible songwriter. I mean, guy wrote hits for like everybody, Keith Urban to George Strait, like Garth, like he's one of the old school Nashville songwriters. I remember the first time he called me and we had coffee and stuff, and he's so passionate about it for all the right reasons. And he's one of those people that I think who is not a vet, but like is so, he's just like, I don't even know how to say it, but he's awesome, and his heart's in the right place, and he does he puts together amazing. He's got a great board of directors put together, and the impact on that he's been able to have with the veterans, it's just, I mean, it's amazing. So they've been doing some, well, right before COVID. The last one I did was right before COVID. They were bringing groups of 10 vets down from the DC area. And then we would write, they pair you up with a vet, and then you write, and then it's like a 3-day thing. You write, work it up, do a work tape on it, and then track it. So we go into the studio, and
isn't it like the first day you get to know the veteran, kind of get to know them, they kind of get to hear your styles. And then the second day, it's like a conversation with the veteran about whatever they want to write about. And then you come up with a song that night. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool, because I think a lot of times that the mystery of songwriting parlayed over the beautiful stories of people's lives or tragic stories. I mean, it's therapy. It's their story, like trying to tell their story. It's a beautiful thing. I got one of my dearest friends here in town, Cindy Morgan. She's an unbelievable writer, and she's done so many of them. And like her ability to draw out stories they've had some that are just for women that she's worked with that are, anyways, it's an amazing organization. And I know Gina's on the board of directors on that too. Yeah. And then the third day, it's tracked and then played in like a concert hall too. Yeah. We perform it usually the last day in front of whoever can come. It's actually the last one I did was with a guy with a Navy vet. And he did a little cameo on the track. He got up and, because I said, man, you want to sing it? He's like, no, I don't want to sing it. He's like, but so he did like a little spoken word piece. He spoke the chorus on it, you know.
Oh, wow.
It was something he had come up with. He said, you know, I'm not as good as I once was. What was it? Better today, not as good as tomorrow. I'm better today, but not as good as tomorrow. And so it was like this mantra that he had for himself. I'm better today, but not as good as I'll be tomorrow. And so this whole, but yeah, it's the list of songwriters that he's got in there is it's a fantastic group of songwriters. So
yeah, now and including yourself, which is great. I've seen this in action. I've seen Operation Song in action, and I've seen that it's very cathartic for veterans to write a song about whatever they want to write about. Is it cathartic for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing about co-writing with somebody is being able to relate and empathize, but also to see someone realize how their story is being put into words and put into song. And a lot of times it's just taking what they actually say and, making it fit into the framework of a song. Sometimes it's trying to fish it out of them a little bit more. But a huge part of it is establishing that rapport and that trust, because it's super vulnerable. I mean, it's co-writing. If you're being real about it, it can be terrifying. And it's one of the reasons I haven't done a lot of co-writing online this last year, just because trying to get intimate and with someone that you've never met before and try to establish that trust over a screen. Not that I don't trust you, Tanner, but
it's different. It's more difficult sometimes.
It's a tall order, and being able to relate. But you're right. I mean, they run the gamut. Sometimes I remember one of the first ones I did was with a vet from Clarksville, and it was, he was going on vacation and he was excited to take a vacation. And so we wrote a song about going to the beach. Like, it was a feel good, happy song. It runs the gamut. I mean, but the crazy thing was the last one that I did with one of the vets from DC. Turns out we had like 5, he was a Navy vet. We had like 5 friends in common that we had both served with.
Oh, wow.
We had missed each other, on duty stations, but like, because he didn't, I didn't tell him in the beginning that I was a vet, and then we were talking, and I was asking him like what he did in the service, and he was kind of coy about it. And then he said something, and I was like, "Oh, were you a nuke?" And he was kind of like, "Huh, how do you know that?" And I was like, "Well, all the things you're saying sounds like you were a nuke." And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, so was I." So then it's like,
he's like, "But you didn't answer my question. How do you know?" That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I was like, "You know that guy by chance?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I served with," and it's like one of those crazy. So then, you have an established bond of common shared experiences that you can draw on. And, yeah. So it probably makes the process of writing a song so much better once you have that. Yeah. But I mean, Bob has done a bunch with like some World War II vets, a lot of Vietnam vets. I mean, it's incredible. So
what's the process of writing a song in a day? Like, that's not normal, is it? Or is it?
It can be. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the weird thing. Sometimes I got some that I've been working on for years, and then those usually aren't the best ones. I mean, the best ones usually end up being the ones that tumble out, and but yeah, I mean, when you have a tracking session scheduled the next day with a bunch of union session players, like, you got to finish it. So you'll get it done. But no, I mean, that's pretty typical. I mean, in normal non-COVID times, the typical like staff songwriters here in town will do a 10 a.m. and a 2 and a 1 or 10 and 2. Like, they'll write at 10 to 1, take lunch, and then come back at 2 and write 2 to 5, 2 to 6. Some will even do an evening session. Sometimes they'll write a song in each of those 3-hour blocks. So it's definitely not unusual to write a song in a couple of hours. If it's, I would say a lot of times, if it's somebody you haven't written before, you spend an hour or two getting to know that person. Yeah. Figure out where you're both at in life and what you want to write about, and figure out, I mean, in Nashville, most country songwriters write from a title, at least old school ones. The new ones write from a track. But the old school guys, like, you wouldn't even start writing the song until you have the title. Once you have the title, I mean, you write the song, and 45 minutes a lot of times. So
it's the right inspiration can spur the dictates the time.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Johnathan, what's one thing that you learned during your time in service that you apply to what you do today?
I daily run a nuclear power plant. That's really what I've applied.
Oh man! Anything, you know, any intangibles, any?
You know, it's interesting. I think about it a lot. Like I'm so glad that I did it. Especially having nobody in my family having done it and no reference. It definitely, I mean, I've always been a hard worker, but it instilled in that, you know, get up and make stuff happen.
Discipline.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was also great. Like for me, I grew up in a little farm town and didn't have, like, we didn't travel a whole lot. We had one summer trip. Yeah. So to be able to, like, that forced, like, okay, here, you're going to figure out how to relate and get along with people from all over the country, from all different walks of life. Like that awareness of being able to navigate people. It's, I think that's been an invaluable skill. And the 10% off at Lowe's isn't bad either.
There you go. Well, Johnathan, we've covered a lot of ground. In about an hour. See, we did an hour over than what you thought it was going to be. Outstanding. Is there anything that I've missed or haven't asked that you think is important to share?
Man, no. I mean, I would say that I remember when I was getting out, I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I feel like there are so many resources now. And in the beginning, I was a little reticent to like utilize them. But there are so many veteran things that are available to us that you have obviously been illuminating on a lot of your podcasts, a lot of the benefits and a lot of the programs.
Trying to, absolutely. And really, it's just an exploration in myself and trying to find it too, because I had no idea. I was like you. I ran from the government as far as I could. You know,
I didn't even know that like I was entitled to VA healthcare when I got out, and I got medically discharged, and like I didn't even know, and I got out, and like I ended up breaking my arm one time, and I went to the VA because it was down the street from my house, and then they were like, "Okay, you're good to go," and I was kind of like, "What?" And they explained to me like, "Okay, you got medically discharged and all this stuff," and like I didn't even know. And so I guess that would be the thing I would say is, find out about your benefits and all that stuff. And it's I know that I feel like the VA gets a lot of flack, and I feel like they've been really great in my experience, we have a great VA facility here in Nashville, and I have good things to say about the VA. So
learn what your benefits are. That's what you're leading.
That's the takeaway.
Yeah, gotcha. Very good. All right. Well, Johnathan, thank you so much for coming on. Colleague Gina, she always talks about your talent, and even sent me a video of you freestyling when I can't remember what the crew that came in to document Operation Song, but it was hilarious and incredible. You mind?
CBS came and did a thing.
CBS did. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You mind taking us off with a Johnathan Kingham either song or original freestyle session or?
I don't have my thing plugged in. I could. You may have to edit it. Do you edit this after?
Yeah, totally. I edit. Yeah, I try to edit them down to an hour as far as the interviews go. So you'll probably cut down about an hour. I edit what I can. Sometimes the content's so good, I just leave it in and everything too. So you'll never know, but I do edit it. Absolutely.
Okay.
All the awkward pauses and the ums and uhs and all that stuff. And like what we're doing right now, like I will totally cut that out.
Okay.
So. All right. Well, Johnathan, let's take us out.
All right. I guess I'll I'll sing a song. I'll sing a song about biscuits.
Okay. Very good.
That's probably what needs to happen because I'm in the South. And this is to everybody getting back to traveling and working again. About what you were talking about in the video game, coming home. It's called When Daddy Gets Home. I've been working a long day. When the whistle blows, you're ready to play. Yeah, we're gonna have a party when Daddy gets home. He has some biscuits just the way I like it. 'Cause I've been working up an appetite. So for some gravy on the side when Daddy gets home. 'Cause I've been thinking about this all day and how good it will be. Sneaking in the kitchen for a small taste of what you're cooking up for me. Heat up the oven, throw some chicken on. Won't leave the table till it's good and gone. Gonna gnaw on some bones when Daddy gets home. Cause I'm thinking about this all day and how good it will be. Sneaking in the kitchen for a small taste of what you're cooking up for me. You're outpowered, you hit the spot. There's always room for the ice on top. Serve it up nice and hot when Daddy gets home. Oh yeah, yeah, we're gonna get to eating when Daddy gets home.
You are so humble. You're too humble. You're too humble.
Man.
Jonathan, thank you so much for spending time with us. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks for having me on. Great to meet you. And I appreciate what you're doing for all the vets and raising the awareness and raising the roof.
We gotta get them one way or the other. Machine gunner, fight bullets fly, day and night rain. Simplify till we die another campaign. My desk is a rock where the drug lords cut up millions. My pen is a 7.62 round that'll cut them down in an instant. Point, click, pull the trigger to the tune of falling brass. Full benefits and a purple heart and a Russian-made bullet in my bag. Raining down lead, punching that clock. Get 'em boys, I'm laying down cover. Machine gunner, fight bullets fly, day and night rain. Simplify, do or die, another campaign. Here we go, lock and load, 0331, lug 1,000 rounds, and I ain't bringing back one.